Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. John Bartz here with NCSI, coming to you live from a parking lot in South Jordan as our power just went out. The show is going on. Welcome to our first ever virtual user group meeting. We have 4 other panelists with us today, and we're excited. We've got Brian Hodzik here, our CTO. Hello, Brian.
Hi, everyone.
And we also have Alan Braithwaite, Senior Director of Product Management with us. Hello, Alan.
Hi everyone.
And we also have Jaron Bracken and Alfredo Contreras with us as well, going to be helping us out. So good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
This user group is all about you today. We want to thank you for your feedback. You picked the 3 topics that we're going to be talking about today. You provided the tips and tricks and also asking the Avanti experts. So thank you for your feedback. Backpacks going out to those who are speaking today. There's 3 groups who are speaking today. Thank you for that. And hats off to those who sent in their tips and tricks. We'll be sending those out to you as well, too. Lots of polling today. We want to make this very interactive today. So, Brian, if we can go ahead and let's just do the test poll. We just wanted to test it out here, make sure everything's working. Let us know what pizza is being delivered today. Brian, you want to show us what the results are as well? There we go.
Jaron, or John, I'd like to make note that I didn't get a pizza, so I'm expecting that card afterwards.
That pizza is coming, and there were quite a few that chose not to have a pizza for one reason or another. So great, polling is working. We've got some more challenging questions coming up. These are all anonymous, so we are not tracking your answers. We're not going to be calling you based on anything like that. And please know that this is a user group. It's about you. It's the first time we're not actually promoting any products or anything either, right, Brian? So no one's going to be calling you after this webinar. If you are with other partners, please stay with other partners. We're here to give you some great feedback and solutions about Ivanti. So that's what I wanted to say about our partnership. We've been a longstanding partner with Ivanti, and we don't want to create any conflict with our partners. So let's go ahead. Food is on the way. If you have any issues with your food, you can always email me. Brian, if you can put that up there, my email address, I'll take care of that live here. And let's go ahead and get started here, Brian.
Thanks, John. Well, thanks everyone for attending. We really appreciate it. This is kind of our first time doing something like this. So please provide some feedback to us. We're going to maybe send a survey afterwards to try and understand if you want it longer or shorter or more in depth on certain things and so forth. So please provide us with that feedback. One thing I like about this is versus these kind of regional groups we've done before, this gives us the most amount of broad spectrum of customers all coming here together today. So please ask questions, use that Q&A. We'll try and kind of review those as we go along and try and answer as many as we can. We got a lot of your questions and a lot of your tips and tricks and so forth. I apologize in advance. We're not going to have time to cover all of them. So we'll try and save some of those other ones for the next time. And please use that Q&A as we're going forward. So first, I'd like to turn over to Alan. He's a product manager over at Avanti. He's going to talk a little bit more about the roadmap. So I'm going to stop sharing here and pass it over to Alan.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, John. I think we can all agree that Brian's COVID-19 beard is looking very sharp.
Well, thank you. I'll shave it as soon as the pandemic is over. That's up to my wife.
All right. Is that looking okay? Full screen?
Yep.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining. This is great. It's a great opportunity for me to be able to join and give an update to all of you on what it is that Ivanti is working on in the unified endpoint management space, which includes security. I'll explain that in a second. There's your disclaimer. So for those that may or may not be aware, Ivanti, we've been talking about our products and our portfolio in usually talking about 5 different pillars about where everything fits. And we've recently, since the beginning of this year, changed that and consolidated things into 2 main pillars. That's not to say we won't be changing again. As many of you probably know, we have new management in place, which means we have a new chief product officer. We have new marketing VP. We have a lot of things. And so, things could evolve a little bit even more from what we're talking about here. But for now, everything is grouped under unified endpoint management and enterprise service management. So it's still all the elements that you're familiar with: endpoint, workspace, patch and security. under Unified, and then Service and Asset Management under what we call Enterprise Service Management, ESM, UEM and ESM, if you will. And then the overarching Unified IT, which is really exhibited and implemented as Avanti Cloud, and how it start pulling everything together through 3 key areas you see in discovery, insights, and automation. So Avanti Cloud is available either, standalone, or it's as part of the subscription. As someone buys any of these products as a subscription, it's included. So we are really starting to talk more and more about that. Now today we're just focusing on UEM, and the way that we talk about Unified Endpoint Management in a few words is that it's to discover, manage, and secure the digital workspace. Okay, it's all about discovering what you have out in there, hardware and software and resources, securing that, and managing it. So another way of saying that is our vision is to increase productivity and reduce risks by providing solutions that discover, manage, and secure the digital workspace. And we have a nice set of products that do that. You own some of them, and hopefully you'll consider looking at some of the others that we have that can help round out your needs, if that's what you need at this time. I'm going to start off real quick by just saying, MDM. We all have heard that term, MDM. Well, what is MDM? Well, it's always been mobile device management, and we think about these mobile devices, but now MDM is extending into other devices, your Windows devices and your Apple devices, Mac OS, Windows 10. And so MDM, we're starting to talk about it more as modern device management. All of these are now modern devices. Your laptop and whether it's Windows or Mac OS is a modern device, and it can be managed through some of the modern technologies. The way we look at this is traditional. CMT stands for client management tools. Traditional management of systems for just client management tools is going to decrease over time. It won't go away, but there are certain systems that will only be managed with CMT. The bulk of the systems can be co-managed. Co-managed means you're using modern MDM as well as your traditional CMT, and that's that space in there in the middle. Most will be doing that. And really, it's a better together situation. Co-management provides all the capability to manage everything in today's world. You got your modern management, which you're in Windows is CSP, and in Mac OS is profiles, and modern OS provisioning, autopilot. Looks like you're going to be seeing a little demonstration of that later, and DEP. That type of management, along with the agent, which can do more in depth. It can do the discovery, the patching and security elements, more in depth and better capability of software delivery, remote control, etc. All of those. So I really do think that's a better together scenario for Endpoint. Let's talk briefly about Workspace Management. Some of you have this, or maybe you're considering it, but Environment Manager Policy, for example, integrates into our Endpoint Management solution that creates what we call as Unified Endpoint Manager. But there's a bigger part of that called Environment Manager, which extends the policy element of Environment Management. And then there's the whole suite of User Workspace Management that includes not only Environment Manager, but Application Control, File Director, and Performance Manager. And that suite right there is all targeted to help out with some of these 3 core elements here that are going on today. Office 365, when you, especially when you're running it in virtual environments, you have this cache and a roaming cache that needs to be kept, and you need to make sure your experience moving from one machine to the next, or essentially restarting your session from day to day, that your end users have the exact same experience in Office 365, Windows 10, both of those in a virtual environment. Workspace management is what's going to give you the very best performance for your end users, but not just for virtual environments. It also works great for physical environments as well, to be able to pull down that personalization just when you need it, or for Windows 10, when an update happens to Windows 10, which we all know are happening on a rapid pace, to be able to get the same user experience when they move to the next version, Windows 10, is critical. So User Workspace Management is all about keeping the same experience no matter what device they log into or when. And the cloud element of this is integrating that with our Avanti Cloud. We also have partnerships with Citrix and Microsoft Cloud, and where we can help extend and make that a better experience in those environments. Common projects for this, as I mentioned, Windows 10 migrations, Office 365 migrations, virtual workspaces, kind of a break fix scenario. If your system goes down and you want to be able to capture all the data and the personal profile information of somebody, this is a perfect way to have stored that, immediately return it, and you're back up and going. Combine that with EPM and you have the perfect break fix and migration tool set there. And then when we talk about patch management and security, we've been talking about the CIS top 5. If you haven't heard that message before, the top 5 of the CIS controls has dozens of controls in there that they list, but the top 5, frankly, are an effective defense against 85% of cyber attacks. And we cover those top 5 with these 4 technologies. Well, you might say, well, there's only 4 or 5. 2 of the top 5 are to discover hardware and software. So that's that first one, hardware and your software that's out there. Then controlling what people can and can't do with their software on their system. Patching to ensure that you're covering all the vulnerabilities and patching those up. And privilege management to ensure people don't have privileges to do things they shouldn't be doing. Those are all capabilities that help defend against that CIS top 5 and 85% of cyber attacks. One thing that we're starting to really push into, this maybe would be more considered a roadmap, but vulnerability management. You're going to hear more and more about this. It's not just about patch management, but the whole idea, you know, your security team typically runs those vulnerability scanners to identify where you're vulnerable, and then the IT operations team has to go run patches and go resolve all that. We want to make this easier. Right now, it feels kind of broken up as to who assesses, who prioritizes it, and who fixes it. We want it to look more smooth and provide tools to make it so everybody's working together from the point of identifying your vulnerabilities to creating a security incident, to patching it, and completing that whole process end to end, and you know, with the ability to go back and see how it all worked end to end, right? Auditing of the process. So I know I'm moving through this quickly, but we'll make these slides available for you to be able to see more of the content without you having to read all the words while I'm talking. Probably shouldn't add all those words, distracting, but all right, now let's talk quickly about roadmap then. Where are we going from an EPM or UEM roadmap? First half of the year, 2020.1 we just released. We'll also have an SU before the end of the first half, and we will have released all these types of things. The first 3 are some of the major things we released in 2020.1, and some of the others will be in the SU. But full Android enterprise support for those that are managing Android devices in their environment. We do a much better job now with that. iOS is in good shape, but Android has been behind. Now we're caught up in that. Cloud software distribution storage. Well, I'll let you guys go through. You can watch the Momentum webinar and see, you know, what came out. I'll just kind of focus on where we're going, but continuing to enhance and make the modern device management better, continue to enhance that, which just means implementing more of the CSPs and more of the profile things on both Windows 10 and Mac OS. Linux is a focus of ours where we're expanding into new OSs and also making it so it's easier to manage Linux devices, as easy as it is for Windows and Mac through agent settings and through deployment capabilities. And then modern user notifications. So we're all familiar with the window that pops up or we send out when a machine needs to be rebooted after it's been patched, and it says, hey, your machine has just been patched or software has been deployed, you need to reboot. And nobody likes to see that necessarily. But we're actually going to do a modern user notification. So in Windows 10, for example, it'll be using the Windows 10 that pops up in the bottom right corner of the screen. It'll look much more modern. It'll look, you know, like something they would expect and say, hey, what's this? And then they can, you know, delay or pause it and everything from there. And it's in that right-hand bar where all your notifications are. And so modernizing that is key. Also, you're going to see in Avanti Cloud a discovery tool that is entirely from the cloud. And so nothing, you know, you can use EPM for discovery, for example, for on-prem, but if you're not using EPM or you want to have a pure cloud play for discovering all of your software and hardware assets, we're offering that coming up soon. Also, the IT Analyst Workspace is a way to be able to do a subset of what EPM can do today, and actually even more with some of the real-time capabilities. And we see that as a replacement to the web console today, for what Endpoint does. And again, for those that are using service management of our product, that's a great add-on to service management to be able to provide tools that your help desk folks can go resolve issues, because they can see everything that's, you got AD and AAD and other elements connecting into there, and you can see the full, you see everything that's going on with the user. Other things, we'll continue expanding remote control. We're going to do Windows 10 ring management, so you can really keep up better with Windows 10. Conditional access, improved extraction reports, etc. You're going to have access to this. I got to keep moving with my time being very limited. For those that have Workspace Manager, here are some things. Internationalization probably doesn't affect anyone on here, but new connectors, and then more ways to improve cache roaming, and then a Windows 10 Smart Start Menu Designer, which is going to be tremendous for whenever you want to keep that start menu exactly how it is as you migrate from different Windows 10 versions. Again, I will make this available to you. Security, as far as EPM patch and security, we have a CrowdStrike integration, and have some better reporting on patch successes. Other items for patch for SCCM, if you have that, or patch intelligence. No, well, patch intelligence is actually part of EPM Cloud. We're now from EPM Cloud, excuse me, Avanti Cloud will be able to drive actions from on-prem products. And then you see the roadmap second half of the year, workflow simplification. So even the rollout projects will become more simplified in automating patch and everything with second half of the year. So these are some of the things we're planning to do. And again, we'll make these available to you. I'm going to wrap that up there. And I don't know if you want me to take questions or just what you want me to do at this point.
Yeah, I think are there a few questions in there, Brian, you want
Yeah,
to tackle real quick?
Thanks for that, Alan. So there's just a couple of here. Do you know if the new Windows 10, that kind of fancy user notification, are we going to be able to give more detail in there for users that want it? Maybe what patches we applied or the reason behind it? Or is it just going to be kind of generic reboot information?
It will, well, let me see if I'll answer it one way and see if I got it right. Are you asking if you can put customized content inside of the window, so you can, a custom message?
Yeah.
You can put a custom message, and you can put custom logos and everything, so it doesn't have to look like it's from Ivanti, and you can put whatever you want to enter.
Okay, great. What about patching Office 365 click to run? Is that something, and I don't know if Jared and Alfredo want to jump in, is that a problem? We can't do that today?
It is a bit of a problem. Well, actually you can do it, but it doesn't take advantage of the file downloading bandwidth, multicast and peer today. And we are working on getting that resolved in the next release. So.
Okay, awesome. Alan, thank you very much. We really appreciate you coming along and giving us a preview on where we're going in the future. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right, so next on our agenda, we want to talk about what the rollout projects that you kind of even mentioned, Alan, bring up. Jaron Bracken is one of our deployment engineers. He's, has decades of experience with the product. Some of you probably even worked with him. What he's going to do is walk us through a little bit more about how we can automate that patch management. A lot of people still are struggling with patch management, doing a lot of things by hand and having to do a lot of clicking. So Jaron's going to walk us through how to set up a rollout project for patch management, and hopefully this can make your patch management life a little bit easier. So Jaron, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you, Brian. Yes, as Brian said, I've had a lot of experience with EPM, but most of my experience comes from installing with users just like you. And probably the number one question I get asked when it comes to patching inside of EPM is, where do we go from here? Here's a list of things we've detected. We want to start installing these patches. Where do we go from here, and how do we make that happen? So I'm going to share my screen here. One of the new tools that Avanti's given us, and when I say new, that's relatively speaking new. I believe it was released in 2016 or 2017, so it's been out there for a few years, but not a lot of people know about it. It's called a Rollout Project. What a Rollout Project is it's a mechanism for automating the testing and the vetting of patches before we push them out to all users and all computers. It also assists in that. We basically set it up to do the testing for us, and then at the end, automatically push that patch out to everyone who needs it. We get to set up rules. We have groups. I call them patch test groups. Some people call them, alpha test, beta test, whatever you want to call it. But we set up groups, and then we apply the patches to those groups, and we give them criteria. We say, okay, I want you to install to 80% successfully, and then wait 3 days and then move on. So we can set up these rules inside of the rollout project so that we can effectively test our patch and have it all be automated. The only thing that we'll really have to do is handle exceptions. If there's a reason, this patch isn't getting installed to the number of machines we think it should, then we need to get involved and handle that. Otherwise, it's all automatic. So I'm going to show you my little patch test rollout project here. A couple of things that I'd set up beforehand is I set up a group. So I only have one test group here. You can have as many as you'd like, as many groups as you want. There's no limit. Well, there probably is a limit, but you're not going to hit a limit if you have 5 or 10. No big deal. I made a group here, just put my 2 lab machines in it. I also made a scope from that group so that I can reference them and do autofix by scope. And then I created this rollout project. Inside the rollout project, I'm going to pause it so I can edit it and show you some of the options there. Inside of my rollout project, I defined steps. And you can see the first step here is my patch test group. It's number 1. So I'm going to open that. And here are the rules I was talking about. Here's the actions that the process or the project is going to take on the definitions of the patches that I drop into it. So the first thing I do is I'm going to apply an autofix setting. And I'm applying it here to my test group. You don't have to use autofix. If you prefer, you can actually do a patch task template. I just prefer autofix because we don't have to worry about scheduling and deleting old jobs and stuff like that. But you do have that option there. So there's my patch test group that I set up for a scope. I've set up some criteria. I think, it's going to take 4 days or so for it to go through this because I give it a day for autofix. And then I also have an additional duration here of 3 days. So this is just for charting purposes. But you can see I set up my success rate. I say, look at the scope. My scope is patch test group. And I want you to verify that a computer is not vulnerable for it. I have another option here that's not vulnerable and patch installed. That means we have to have the patch installed. This is either I was never vulnerable to it, software that I don't have installed, or I'm just no longer vulnerable. Here's my rating here, got 75%, which obviously won't work for my group of 2. But the patch in here is 75%. Once I hit that 75, I have what I call a bake timer. Throw in 3 days, 5 months. Some people have different policies for patching than others. But essentially, you put in whatever bake timer you want here, and the patch is just going to, we're going to let it percolate, as I call it, inside of the group and make sure that, oh, we patched Office and we patched out Access, but Access maybe doesn't get launched every day. So we give it time to bake and sit. Once you've reached whatever your comfort level is, in this case, I have 3 days, we move it on out into the next group. And we have things such as approval here where we can say, hey, I want to approve the patch before it moves. So even if it's ready, I'm not going to let it move. I want to get, put my stamp of approval on it before you move it forward. We even have options for like, wait until a certain date and time, first week, the second, third, or fourth week of a month, in case you have like a maintenance window, for example. And then we have options to get emails about duration exceeded, whether or not the criteria has been met, and approval, so forth. My next group here is my global deployment. Like I said, I only have 2 steps in my rollout project. You can have as many as you'd like. This one, we're going to push it out to everybody. In this case, I chose global auto deployment, or auto fix, sorry. You can have, for example, a different rollout project for servers than you do for workstations, or if you have a different group of workstations that have, other requirements. In that case, I would just, make a scope for those computers to be kind of the end result for that, of like, here's all of the computers in the training labs or whatever. But for my example here, it's just global. And this time I'm not going to have a duration. It's just going to be success rate. We can choose whatever we want. Another important part of what I do with this is I apply tags. So in the first step, I apply a patch test group tag. In the next step, I apply this tag. And the reason I do this is so that I know this patch has gone through my rollout project and I know where it is simply by looking at the patch list. I don't have to come in to look at the rollout project. I can see it under my patch compliance view. And then these are just defaults that we can set up to have the rollout project. So to get a patch into the rollout project, all I do is I usually start here at detected. I find whatever it is I want to patch. And this part can be automated if you are on at least 2019.1. I think it's flat. It might be SU1. You have filter definitions that you can apply. You can be very granular about, I need it to be a security patch that's important from Microsoft. And if it is, go ahead and automatically add it to my rollout project. And ultimately, that's the goal. But in the beginning, I always tell people, hey, let's do this manually. Let's grab a couple of patches, whatever you wanted to start with, and then you can simply copy and paste them into the rollout project. Oops, need to paste it in the rollout project, not in the folder above it. And there we go. Now you can see I've added some patches prior to this, and we have some success on them already. I added some patches. I only have 2 machines, so one of them has it, one of them doesn't. So I'm at 50% of a success rate, and you can see they're waiting for approval, although I haven't hit my 75% anyway. If you want more information, you can go into properties on each one of these, and it'll tell you exactly where it is and why it's stuck. In this case, I have 2 targets, and one of them is missing the patch, so that's why I'm at 50%.
Great. And then we just had a poll up there. Brian, that was pretty interesting, the polling. Can you show the results again there? I'm not sure, Jaron, you can see that as well, but some great feedback there on the polls.
I've always been curious that every organization patches at a different pace. I've really never met 2 that do it the same way. So as you can see with the poll information, it's very obvious that everyone does it differently. There's not an exact one standard that everyone patches in extremely similar ways. So usually there's just business drivers behind that. It's usually not the technology, it's the security department and business drivers deciding on when we should push those patches out.
Yep, across the board there. I'm going to be the timekeeper here today, trying to keep us on track here. Do we have any questions?
Yeah, there's several questions here. Let me get them out to Jaron. Is auto-fixing a test scope in a rollout project more beneficial than utilizing the EPM pilot function?
Yes, I've never been a big fan of the pilot function, just because it runs on its own schedule, and you're running kind of blind with that. With this, you can see exactly where we are, the number of machines that we've succeeded on, the number we've failed on. You can even go as far as going into the vulnerability properties, going to history, and seeing which machine it's failed on and which machine. You can see I even have a failure here for you that it hasn't installed on. So yeah, in my opinion, the rollout project should pretty much obsolete those pilot groups.
Okay, and another question about maybe the maturity of it. When rollouts first came out, maybe someone steered them away from it. Do you feel comfortable with it now in later versions and recommend most customers should be using it?
I don't know if I've really seen any changes from the initial release to now. I could be wrong. I don't know if Alan's still on the call. He can correct me. But I haven't really seen much in the way of changes there. I think really the maturity that's gone on has been, at least for me, my understanding of the rollout project and how to make them work for every different type of environment and user. So yes, I would say my confidence level is high. Everyone that I install patching for, this is how we do it.
What about custom definitions? Can you have custom definitions be sent out through rollout projects?
Absolutely. There's no differentiation between custom or Avanti built definitions. They're all just one and the same.
Okay, great. So sorry, there's a couple other questions. We'll try and tackle those at the end. I just want to throw out just a reminder, guys. We're showing you patches today, but you can also do software distribution. You know, if you need to roll out a big version of Office or some big application needs to get out there, you can use it for patching and for software distribution.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for bringing that up.
Okay, great. So the next thing we wanted to bring up that you guys kind of asked for was the new Windows 10 MDM/autopilot. Alan touched on it a little bit, but we're entering this new world of co-management. And co-management really means that in the past, we relied 100% on our own stuff. It was our server, our agents, our configuration. But the new mobile device management that's coming to the table for not just iOS and Android devices, but for Mac and PC, it's going to make us want to manage through that as well at the same time. So we're doing both our traditional management and the new MDM management. So Jaren's going to walk us through a little bit about the Windows 10 MDM and autopilot and kind of how you set that up. Jaren, if you could kind of walk us through that process.
Sure. I was just noticing in the chat, people were saying they can't see me. I'm a deployment engineer, and I've been on a deployment today, and I'm wearing a headset and do not look presentable. So I'm not going to share my screen. You can look at my picture. That's totally fine. But for this part, Brian, I know you had some slides in the slide deck. Would you mind displaying that?
Quick.
No excuses, Jaren. We gave Hodzik a pass last Halloween, so this is your one pass. And just real quickly, pizzas are arriving 12:15 local time. I'm getting a lot of emails regarding that. So if you haven't received it yet, it's 12:15 local time. Thanks.
All right, so there's our slides on the MDM autopilot, Jaren.
All right, so my slides today, and I'm going to do a little bit of talking before we get into the slides. The slides are mostly the settings because my goal was to talk about autopilot more than MDM and how you only need 4 simple steps to get autopilot working. But let me backtrack a little bit and let's talk about Windows 10 MDM. As Alan alluded to, this is the future. This is the way things are going to go. If we want to have full control over a machine, we're probably going to have both an MDM and a full agent on them. And so MDM is becoming more and more important. The setup for Windows 10 MDM is fairly simple. There's a wonderful guide available on Avanti's website that walks you through the whole thing. It does require a CSA or a cloud services appliance that has access to the outside world and access from the outside in. And also, third-party cert, stuff like that. Outside of that, everything is something that you can do, for free. Sign up for Microsoft accounts, set up projects and things like that. Those are all available to you. The enrolling with Windows 10 MDM, for anyone who's done it, is a little bit less intuitive. You have to go into the configuration and click on, I can't even remember what it's called now, join my organization or something like that, and then type in your MDM credentials to make it work. It's been a little bit harder to do. It's going to be a little more difficult for an end user to be directed to go to the right place. You would definitely have to have a guide with screenshots. And they've made that easier with autopilot. Where autopilot comes in is we can actually, based off of your user's domain and email, we can say, hey, when this computer gets set up and it comes out of the box, and everybody's gone through the Windows 10 OOBE experience, the out-of-box experience. As you're going through and selecting, whether or not to use Cortana, it asks you to log in, use, your organization's account or a live account. If you choose to use an organization's account, we can actually have the MDM agent installed as part of that out-of-the-box process. So big advantage there is you're not guiding users through, 3 different levels of Microsoft's kind of confusing settings pages anymore. It's type in your username and password, and we'll recognize that and install the MDM agent. The other big benefit is once the MDM agent is installed, we can now push the full agent using an MSI. So that's where these slides come in. This first one is a prerequisite, Windows Notification Service. If you already have MDM set up, then this part of Autopilot is complete. It's just you got to go and sign up for the project and get your package SID and the client secret and all that. And again, there's an awesome guide on the Avanti community or forum page that will walk you through doing that. Go ahead and do that next slide, Brian. Okay, here's our MDM Autopilot. Now, this is where things get a little more difficult. Autopilot does have some prerequisites. And one of those prerequisites is you need to have Azure AD and either P1 or P2, and I don't even know what those mean, but you need to have either P1 or P2 in order to utilize this Autopilot function. If you have that, you can go and grab some app ID, URI, and directory ID, and paste those into here, and that's pretty much it. You're now ready to go with MDM. Next slide, Brian, please. Once you have the MDM agent installed, it's pretty simple to install a full agent. All we have to do is use a URL share, so HTTP here, and point it at a self-contained client installation package. I'm sorry, not a self-contained, a advanced agent installation package. So you can see I've got a lab windows configuration.msi. That's a 5 meg file that's going to download to the computer and be installed via MSI or via the MDM Autopilot. And now once we do that, next slide, Brian, we can specify and say, hey, I want you to install my full EPM agent during MDM enrollment, and I want you to use this package. And that drop down there is just a list of your software distribution packages. So that's going to download the 5 meg MSI, and then just like Advanced Agent everywhere else, it's going to slowly download and stream those files to the computer, and then install the installation or install the full agent installation. So that is our integration with Autopilot. If you do a little research in Autopilot, it has a lot of other options as well outside of the Avanti world. But inside of Avanti, we could look at this as kind of a pathway to stop imaging. Install Windows, enroll in Autopilot. Once the agent gets down, we can have queries set up to begin installing software and making changes to those computers that are new. So I know I took a little bit too long on the rollout projects. Hopefully I made up the time here. Are there any questions about Windows 10 MDM and Autopilot?
Yeah, while those questions come in, I'll highlight something that you mentioned there, a replacement for imaging. That's going to be the trend. Microsoft is a little bit slow, but Apple, Apple is ahead of the curve on this. They've made it so you can no longer image. You cannot image a Mac OS 10.14 machine and later. So I'm going to use my crystal ball and predict that 5 years from now we're not going to be talking about imaging anymore. That will be a legacy of the past, and Microsoft is going to steer us as hard as they can towards this new concepts of doing it as an enrollment. You buy the device, it comes from the manufacturer with the operating system on it, and we're only configuring it, we're only changing it. So that's not a requirement today. We're going to, kind of ease into it over the years, unlike Apple that just kind of pulled the carpet out from under us. But, know that this is coming. We need to be spending more time thinking about this and talking about this in the future. There's a question here about things like a third-party cert on the CSA. Don't we have some requirements for that, Jaron? Like specifically, it cannot be a wild card. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah. It cannot be a wild card. Needs to be obviously from a trusted provider, and then either 2048 or 1024 for the encryption.
Okay. And you said there's a guide that walks you through all these steps, like how to sign up for that Microsoft account and so forth, right?
Correct.
Maybe you can grab that and we can either share that afterwards, we can put it in the chat, something like that.
You bet.
Okay, so thank you, Jaron. We really appreciate you coming on here and educating us on those two things. We are a little bit over on time here, so I'm gonna change our agenda just a tiny bit. We were gonna hear from Alfredo next, but I want to jump to our our customers really quick, just to make sure we have time to fit them in. They've generously agreed to come on and talk a little bit more about some different specifics that they've done in their organization. So let me just skip ahead to right here. I'm going to bring on a couple of people here from Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, and they're currently muted, so I need to find them and unmute them really quick here. So give me a second for that. So I'm going to bring on Jeremy. So Jeremy should be able to talk, and Peter. So unmute. Peter and Jeremy, are you guys there?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me? This is Jeremy.
Yes. Hi, Jeremy. Thank you very much for joining us. Just a little bit of background. You guys have been using Endpoint Manager for many, many years. As a matter of fact, you guys use a lot of products even outside of the Endpoint Management suite, but we want to talk a little bit more about kind of what you're doing with it, and specifically some details around things that you're doing with custom patching, custom definitions, and things like that. So Jeremy, do you mind kind of walking us through that a little bit?
Yeah, we've started out using Landesk forever ago. And we've kind of slowly transitioned into what you guys have now. We actually have the full line of Ivanti products.
Yeah, it's called the Enterprise License Agreement, the ELA. So it unlocks.
The ELA. We have the full ELA, and so with our patching and piece that we kind of use, we kind of do the same thing. We start, we get patches directly from you guys that we roll to our validators group, and then from that group we roll out to everybody for the endpoint management. We usually give it about a week and then roll it.
Okay. What's that group of validators? Is that a test group that you have, or people that know that they're in the patch group that are testing it?
Yeah, so we have different regions that we have systems in, because we have several buildings that we maintain and manage, and that group is select people that are more IT savvy, that I don't know, we have close to 5,000-ish users, and we have about 400 or 500 users in there. Kind of just give us a good group to make sure that we're not going to break anybody's machines with patches. And then once we have that, we will push it out to them, let it cook for about a week, make sure that we don't have any major problems, any catastrophic failures where we're like getting blue screens or anything like that. And then after we don't see any problems or phone calls to the help desk, then we'll put it in our global auto fix and apply it to everybody.
Okay. Do you do that by hand? Do you use rollout projects? What's that step look like?
So we actually use we do it by hand currently. So we just go into the, I start at the unmanaged, move that into our scans. We have it scan everything, see what's there. And then once it's been scanned, then we'll apply that to that validator group. It'll sit with those guys for about a week. And then we apply it the global auto fix to it. So we don't have anything automated quite yet, but it was definitely nice seeing the rollout project, so we can maybe venture down that path.
Okay. Do you guys do both Microsoft and third-party patches as part of that rollout process?
Yes. So we do all the Microsoft patches, all of the third-party like Putty, Adobe, all that fun stuff. One thing we are also excited to see is the Office 365 click to run.
Yeah.
Because right now we are manually patching that, and we just actually create custom packages to send that out as a patch, basically.
Okay. Do you send that out as a patch custom package or as a software distribution job?
So it's actually a software distribution job. We do have other custom patches that we use a lot. For configuration for Adobe, they have some settings in the registry that we like to have set for our organization. And so we take that patch and we add our custom variables into a patch, and then we push that patch out to all our machines.
Okay, so it's not even necessarily changing files, but it's changing registry settings to customize Adobe to the way that you want to.
Yes, correct.
Okay. No, that's very cool. I wouldn't have thought of that, but yeah, being able to just customize it and do the detection logic, because you in the detection logic of custom patches, you can say look for a certain registry key. So you could pretty easily say if you're missing this registry key or it's not what you expect, you know, to turn around and correct it with the one that you want. So that's a great idea.
Right, and we do the same thing with Google Chrome, where we go in and say, okay, you need these plugins, you need these permissions and settings, and we'll add those into the added into Chrome as well.
Nice, I like it. Okay, well, Jeremy, thank you very much for coming on board and talking a little bit about your patching journey with Avanti EPM. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, next I want to talk, or I want to bring on the phone here, Michael from Sorensen Communications. So I'm going to unmute Michael really quick. Michael, can you hear me? Yes.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining us. You work for Sorensen Communication, another long-term EPM customer, and you with the whole COVID situation, you image a large number of machines recently, and I just want to kind of talk to you a little bit about that journey that you had there. So, do you mind telling us kind of a little bit of the background on that?
Yeah, Sorensen is a video relay system where a deaf person can make a phone call. Basically, they can call their mother, grandmother, and a video interpreter will jump on the line and interpret through ASL or sign language for the individual. They can call a grandmother. They can also call 911 if need be, and it works back and forth. You as a hearing person can call a deaf person through video equipment and talk to them. And up until last month, it was pretty much mandated that that interpretation would take place in a controlled VRS video relay center. Last month, things changed for us, and we moved 1,400 video relay interpreters to their homes. So we got computer equipment, headsets for the audio portion, soft video phones for the video portion, and got the computers, and we started imaging 1,400 systems. We used Avanti, and to do that imaging, some of the software had not been developed that we use in-house for the at-home interpreter, and that was kind of being developed as we were imaging, building the airplane in flight, as they say.
Yeah.
We set up a system in our corporate headquarters where we could image 50 computers at a time. We looked into multicasting, but because of some custom software that we had to add during the process, that didn't work for us. Every system is basically unique with unique phone numbers and unique video phone numbers for the interpreter. And then we also didn't know which of our interpreters would be working from home. And so we didn't know where they could be shipped. A lot of things in the process that we developed as they were being imaged. We just set up an assembly line. We could get 50 computers imaging at once. We had to beef up our network. To do that, our network guys loved this. They set us up with a 40 gig network down to a switch that went into each computer. We added resources to our Avanti core, SQL Server, and along this process, we also had to learn a lot of things about the CSA and transitioning from an internal provisioning and software deployment to the at-home, outside the company type of deployments. We were successful, and we got more than were needed. working from home. And
I see that. That's 1,700 imaged in 5 days. That's
yeah.
that's very impressive. That's a very large number. So you talked about having to beef up the server and get some more network bandwidth there. If you had to do this again and kind of start over, what would you do differently to make it even smoother?
Well, after Jaren's demo, the MDM and autopilot looked kind of interesting, but as I said, we didn't have some of the software before we began, and we pushed that out later. We use the Portal Manager also for downloading new versions, and I would have taken a month or two more to do it than the week that we had. Our base image we changed. Normally we have a very thin base image with basic Windows 10, and then we add on all of our software. For this process, we included specific software that for this task we included that in a bigger base image because we knew it would speed up the imaging process. And yeah, it would have been nice to have some of this software before we started imaging, but that's not the way it worked.
It rarely is.
So it was deployed. Some was deployed after the fact, and some was downloaded through the Portal Manager by the end user.
Great. Well, thank you for jumping on here and sharing that story. That's great success. I love to see us in a pinch getting some value out of the tool and maybe doing things we never really intended to at the start. I think you mentioned before the rules were they could never do it from home, and then all of a sudden, really quickly, the rules change, and we live in a different world than we did a week ago. So
yes,
I'm glad to hear EPM was able to jump in and do that imaging. So wide-scale imaging, it can be done. It can be done in large numbers like that. If anyone needs any more help with that long-term, just definitely hit me up. We can hook you up with Michael or one of our deployment engineers that helped out with that. So thanks, Michael.
thank you.
All right, next, last, and I apologize, we are running way late, so I skipped over some of your questions that you had. I'll try and answer them at the end. I want to bring on Willie and David from the U.S. House of Representatives, the Office of Legislative Counsel. Let me just unmute them here really quick.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I know we're running late on time, so I'll be quick with it. And Dave will talk to the provisioning. He does more of the provisioning work than I do with the image deployment. But we've been using Landesk for like one of the other guys said, 15 plus years. It's a very long time. And then we switched to Avanti, and we're loving the tool. The support is just great. We use it for a number of things, not for everything that it can do in our small shop. But Portal Manager is one of the primary tools that we use. We create, we'll create packages or scripts or something we want to send out to users, and some we just deploy silently. They get it, they're good to go. Others we put into the Portal Manager for a user to go in and fix their own problems. Like there are some issues, like for example, speaking to Adobe, every time Adobe deploys an update or we get an update with Adobe, it breaks some of them to function properly. So when a deployment like this happens, or a user recognizes something's changed, they can simply just click on the install and they'll get the update. They don't even have to call the IT team anymore. We have different FTPs for various different groups in the office, which we can adjust to say, either group A or group B is having a problem and their settings are different. In this screenshot of Portal Manager, it happens to be my machine where I can see everything because obviously I'm an admin. But it's a crazy great tool. It's made our lives tremendously easier. It's cut down support calls a lot. In fact, this is where we need to deploy an admin level tool, which one of these here, like our Drafters Toolbox, requires, it's actually 2 installations, it's a bundle, where one is installed by an admin and one is installed by the user. And we put it together where the user has no concept that there's more than one package installing under a different profile. And all they do is click install, it goes in, and it works great. So we've been very, very happy with with the tool.
Yeah, I
with that.
see that one that the PDF out error fix. I love that idea. Let
Yeah.
the user solve their own problem. They're happy, we're happy. I mean, everybody wins. So I love that idea of putting those kinds of fixes in there and then just training the user. Hey, go right here, fix your own problem. And
that's exactly it. When it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they've got a call and they got to do some things, I don't have to get that phone call. They're like, oh yeah, I got to just click that, boom, and it fixes this thing, and I'm ready to rock and roll. And they do love it. So do we. Dave, you want to talk about provisioning?
Sure. I don't think ours is quite as extensive as Michael's, but just to capitalize off what Willie was saying, yeah, we've been using it for over 15 years, and basically, we've got the gamut of Landesk. And I'll still keep calling it Landesk until they change the file names, but it's just 2 of us. So there's so much that this software can do, but again, since there's 2 of us, we're extremely limited. And we would love to do more, and kind of excited about some of the things we heard here today. But as far as provisioning is concerned, we don't do as much. I think the most we were under the gun for doing provisioning is when we went from Windows 7 to Windows 10. So that was a quick turnaround for that with our users. And unlike most organizations, when our user has a down system, they need it yesterday, and there's no ticket basis, so we're pretty much hands-on with our users. They have our cell phone number, so we can't escape the system. But as far as that, we basically use a VM machine. So and we install basically everything. Since our entire office uses all the same software, it's not an issue. So we'll just basically make an image, and I'll update that from time to time and do the updates and re-push it up with the imaging tool. I'll recapture it. And once in a while, I'll use DISM, depending upon if it's an easy update, instead of, making an update and pushing it back up again. But other than just making sure that, we have everything set on the end systems as far as the UEFI is set, we basically use the ImageX and the WEM. And we switched from the WEM from the TBI. I'm not really sure why I switched that, other than it became available with Landesk. And after reading several articles, it's supposed to be more user-friendly with Windows. So we just went with that. But other than that, we keep the library up to date. The HI driver management. One thing I really like is Landesk does a good job with updating the drivers for systems. But if you can't, one of the options and features that I really like is to be able to go in and assign a driver from the library. So you can basically, it's saying, this isn't loading. My system's coming back up, but I'm missing this. Well, you can tell the systems for any particular model, look, this is what I want. Put it in here, don't ask. So that's a really nice system that's in place. And kind of jumping around, we haven't used the user state migration tool yet for in-place upgrades. Not sure how applicable it is for us. It sounds really great. Haven't done a lot of testing yet, but that's something that we look forward to moving forward with that.
Okay, great. Well, thanks guys. Thanks David and Willie. We appreciate you getting on here and giving this feedback and talking about how you're using it in the portal manager. And as you can see in our poll, there's still plenty of people that are not using the portal manager, about 50%, 44%. Definitely let's look into it. It solves lots of problems. It makes life easier for us. Hey, I love that, but a bonus. It makes it easier for the end user as well. And somebody even asked a question: is anyone doing driver updates or driver software deployments with the portal manager? So if anyone is, comment in the Q&A.
We have done them with Portal Manager.
Oh.
People who have printers at home, when they take their laptop out of the office, they go home and they have a printer. They either will call us and say, "Hey, we got a printer that requires an admin to install," so you're punching your name and the admin name and password to install a driver. Alternatively, we'll say, "You know what? You see a bunch of people have HP 8600 printers at home. We're going to download the driver, put in a Portal Manager, and go ahead and install it." And so they get home, they see the task right there in the Portal Manager. I'm like, great, click install, boom, nothing to think about, and it rocks. And so, the IT team gets a small group of us. I mean, we support a decent sized office, but it's generally 2 of us who really do any work. Yeah, but we do get, fortunately, a good amount of praise for having these tools in place.
Awesome. That's a rare thing, us getting praise for something. So
Thank
no,
you,
that's
thank you, Avanti.
okay. Thanks, David. Thanks, Willie. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So guys, looking at the time, we are way over it. It's already 12 o'clock here my time. So this is being recorded. So I'm just going to keep going. If you can stick around, great. Please do. If not, we'll have the recording up on our YouTube page later. You can kind of watch what happens. We still had a Q&A section, some tips and tricks that I wanted to go through, some great questions, some great tips and tricks that I want to review really quick. So let's jump into them. So we got a question here from Lyle at MSU in Bozeman. Agent health, agent repair, where are my agents not functioning and how do I automate agent repair? So I'll turn that over to Jaron or Alfredo if you want to chime in, if you have any good tips or tricks on potentially how to fix that, how to automate those agent repairs.
Alfredo, would you like to take the question since you haven't had a chance to talk?
I'll take a stab at it. Yeah, so in EPM, we do have something called the agent health. It's a module built into the agent configuration. You can access it and enable it there. It is driven by a couple of things. It monitors the services that are run on the device, scheduling service, the inventory service, remote control service. And it also is monitoring down to the agent file. So, you know, it's LD inventory.exe, et cetera, et cetera. So once enabled, you can monitor that, and the agent health add-on can automatically monitor those services and kickstart them if they become unstable and crash, for example. Or if somebody maliciously removes those services, it could automatically just restart, reinstall the agent if some of those files are gone or the services have been removed. That's one way. To keep track of this, you can create a query referencing the last contact of that device. So let's say we create a query, it says 30 days, lost contact. That'll give you a good idea of where you're at with, well, you know, the first 5 were devices that are kept in storage as spares, and the next are legitimately lost because something had to happen, and that gives you a better idea. To remediate those, you could also use UDD, the unmanaged device discovery, to scan for those and redeploy the agent as needed. There's also, the last thing that comes to mind is probably a GPO, where that rolls out the agent to devices that are managed through Active Directory or part of the Active Directory domain automatically. And those are things that just quickly come to mind.
Okay, great.
I'll throw in one too real quick. Just a query, you know, machines that haven't done an inventory or vulnerability scan in X number of days, run that on a job to install the agent.
Oh, that's a job. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, that way if it's just not checking in, you're just forcing a reinstall automatically based on the date. That's good idea. Okay, another question here from Randy at Rexel. How do you upgrade Windows 10 from 1903 to 1909 using the enablement via patch?
I can take this one. So those patches do live. In fact, I'm going to share my screen again.
I'll have to stop really quick, no problem. Go ahead, Jaron.
Okay. Those patches do live inside of our patch repository, along with everything else. And let me see if I can find one. My lab is a little bit different. Let me look in scan. I believe it's already on 1909, so I'm gonna have to go to my scan folder rather than detect it. But the definitions are there. They offer automated installation. Here we go. So this is Windows 10 Professional 1909. The only difference with them is you can see downloaded no, can download no. You have to provide an ISO. So you go to Microsoft, you can either do through your volume licensing portal or even just, you know, Googling the Windows Media Creation tool. You can go and download the ISO. rename it to match this file name here, throw that in your patch folder, and now you can do a repair. When you do a repair, it's going to run stuff in the background. You can actually do it right in the middle of the day. It'll do as much as it can running in the background, but the actual upgrade won't complete until a reboot is initiated. And whether or not you want to have the user do that, or if you want to do it through our automated means, but that's all you do.
Great. So definitions are there. You just need to bring your ISO to the table, and it'll take care of the rest. And then it's just treated like a normal patch, right? At that point.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. Great. Okay, so Tamara at the Sacramento Public Library says, can EPM replace WSUS? And if so, how do you prevent Windows updates from running? So absolutely, we can replace WSUS, and we can go more than that because we do those third-party patches. But maybe I'll pass this over to Alfredo. How do we prevent Windows updates from running?
Thank you. So actually, you know Tamara. So hi, Tamara. Hope all is well. To prevent a lot of organizations, when they come, they acquire EPM, they roll that out. They usually have already have an existing patch management solution that's been replaced. So WSUS is obviously the default for that, among others. But to disable that within EPM, we do have another policy driven by the patch and compliance view. And it's a little script that actually disables the automatic Windows updating from running automatically. That is the quickest way. You just right-click on that policy. You select enable autofix, whether that's globally or in a specific scope, and then that gets rolled out to all the machines automatically on the next full scan. What that doesn't do is other configurations that WSUS admins may have configured in Active Directory, where previously they were pointing to those WSUS servers for scanning and vulnerabilities and all that other fun stuff. Those can be undone by this, or they can, but then they'll come back conveniently. So we do need to work with our admins for WSUS to remove those policies in Active Directory.
Great, awesome. All right, next question. Jeremy at MDU Resources says, are there more reporting options, especially on the effectiveness of patching devices? So any takers?
I'll take that one. So yes, there are patch reports available in the console, which is what I assume you're referring to, Jeremy. And they're okay. You know, they're not stellar. You can usually at least change those to meet the criteria that you're looking for. But extraction that everybody has a license to, everyone who owns EPM has a license to run extraction, has a lot more, and it's pretty. It's HTML5. It looks modern. The reports in EPM are, let's say, somewhat antiquated. Extraction has a more modern approach. You can build them with drag and drop, make your own dashboard. So yes, if you're looking for a better report on patching, I would definitely look at extraction and even just some of their built-in dashboards that it ships with.
Yeah, definitely use extraction, guys. You get it for free. You can install it on your EPM server. It only takes an hour or two. So please use it. The way I best describe extraction is it's for people that don't use the tool. Everyone on the phone here today, you've been using the tool for a while. You want a report, you're going to go create a query, you're going to look at the tool itself. It's for when your boss comes in, when the CIO comes in. It says, I need a report on X. They don't want an ugly CSV export. They want to look at something pretty. Appearance matters. I hate it just as much as you guys do, but appearances matter. Let's make it bubbly. Let's make it full of colors. Let's make it so they can click on it if they want to. It's the same stupid data, but it sure looks good. You can automatically email it out to them once a month. So please look at extraction. You already own it. You can connect it to EPM and your other Avanti products and use it for pretty reports. So
great segue here for marketing to talk about the YouTube channel, because we just uploaded Jaren's how-to video on how to install extraction. So great timing, Jaren. That's out on our YouTube channel. you can check that out by just going to our website and clicking in the footer. It'll take you directly there. So great timing on that video.
All right, I think this is our last question. Aaron over at Tyler Technologies, do you have any tips on tuning inventory management? I know that there's definitely some advanced tuning on specifically the inventory scheduling service on the core server. If anyone wants to take that, talk about threads, tuning of that.
I could talk about that. Yeah, so to lay down the framework, the core server is in charge of a lot of things, a lot of decision makings, and docking directly to the core to the database and populating and maintaining that data. So essentially, the core server has a queue where messages come in and they get processed by the core, etc. To tune, right? Usually, for an average shop, the default settings are optimal, right? You're not going to run into any backlogging or anything, but the way you know you have a problem is usually when you run out of space on the server, and there's 50 to 100,000 files in the folder called SD scan, LD scan. The LD scan, you'll see a bunch of messages in there, and it's just really the overwhelming backlog that has been created. There are ways to help address those issues. One of them, and Brian mentioned this, is thread count. And with the thread count, it enables the inventory services to create more threads to the database, so more bandwidth essentially. You could process more. There it is. Process more messages and get that stuff saved to the database. Others are memory restrictions, preventing the inventory service to grow exponentially, taking up all the memory on the core server, right? You could adjust those, increase those. If you read the description there, it says, hey, you can have 1 through 8. And theoretically, yeah, we go with 8 and we have maximum throughput here. Sometimes that's not a good idea. Maybe your SQL server can't keep up with that, and they'll lead to even more inventory service crashes. So you really don't want to increment, 1 to 8. You just want to add 1 thread count at a time. Make sure that it's stable. Make sure that messages are being processed, and you're moving along in the right direction.
Okay, awesome. I just happen to have my server open here, so I wanted to show off where that's at. Just under configure services, there's an inventory tab, and then advanced settings there. There's a bunch of other cool stuff you can do in here. Be careful. You can screw things up by playing around with this too much. So if you ever have a question, hit us up. We can give you advice on how to tune that. Back to our presentation. That was our final question. I want to throw in a couple of tips and tricks submitted by you guys, and we really appreciate these. Sergey from City of Chubbuck talks about the space on the server, and Alfredo just touched on that, and this is absolutely important. I know this is a basic server thing, but it's very important to pay attention to. Our patch downloads can fill it up. If there's a problem with the inventory scanner, it can fill it up. If I had a customer the other day that downloaded all the HII drivers for every device, even though they weren't HP shop, it still download drivers. It's like 180 gigs. So, stay on top of that, pay attention to that, because that will cause lots of problems if we run out of disk space on your server. So if you're ever really curious, there's a cool tool out there called WinDirStat that you can download. It analyzes where are all the files on the file system. You'll usually find it in the patch folder or the driver folder or the LD scan folder, like Alfredo talked about. Most of the time we're safe, clearing those up and cleaning them up. Next, David from A&E Networks talked about separating your patch groups into scopes so you can easily approve the patches for each scope. I'm a huge fan of this. I don't want to look at our entire organization when it comes to patching. I want to have a small group, a medium-sized group, a large group. Maybe your servers need to be different from your workstations. Use scopes to help separate those out, because when you open up the AutoFix patch window, the first thing it shows you is the scopes. So even if you're not using for user and role management, you can still slice it up for patches. One tip I like to throw out there is don't tell people they're in the patch pilot group, or the next time their car doesn't start, they're going to call you and say, well, my car doesn't start because you applied a patch to my computer. So I like them to be, kind of a surprise, and only if they are really having problems we get attributed to the patching. Next, Teresa, Northwest Preferred Credit Union says when Microsoft releases patches, do a search for preview. Look at those preview patches and move them to do not scan. So preview patches are, I don't think they officially use the word beta. That's not exactly correct. It's more like a pre-release or something like that. The bottom line is you're a guinea pig. And didn't they just pull a big patch here in February that was released? Microsoft did. So I don't want to be a guinea pig. So grab those that are set to preview, dump them into do not scan, and then you don't have to worry about being a guinea pig for Microsoft. Pat over at the Washington Post has a cool trick, and he actually wrote a little article on the Avanti forum about this, on how to use Patch Manager to help build out some of your software libraries. So, things like a Chrome or Firefox and things like that, they don't really release a patch. They release the entire installer for the entire application every single time. So you can actually take that and have all of the versions of Firefox and Chrome and all those kinds of style of applications. I think Slack was one of the ones he used as an example. Pick that up, go put that over into software distribution. It can just make your life a little bit easier when you're creating packages. Half the work is already created and done for you. Okay, so I apologize for going so far over time. We're 15 minutes over here. I didn't get to all the questions. I apologize for that. We're going to try and follow up with everyone that had a question that maybe we weren't able to answer. I'm going to send out a survey, or maybe John's going to send out a survey to say, how can we change these in the future? First of all, I'm going to ask for more time, minimum 2 hours probably. Got lots of questions, lots of things we want to talk about. So let's expand the time that we can do in terms of the length of this. Also, I'm always looking for people to come on and talk about something you've done. You've done something interesting, you tweaked it a certain way, you made a cool package or a cool provisioning thing, hit me up, or we're gonna be hitting you up in the future to just jump on. And, I don't want to just be me and my team rattling off to you. I want you guys to kind of talk and help drive that. Give me topics. Tell me what you want to see, what you want to hear more about. Do we need to have it more in depth? Do we need to have breakout sessions for an hour on just patch management and an hour on provisioning? I don't know how you guys want it, so I'm going to be asking for that feedback. Take a look at our calendar. You can see the link there at the bottom, ncsi.us/events. We have one for the service management coming up here in May, at the end of May, 21st or something like that. So if you use our Service Desk or Service Manager product, we're going to have one focused on that, hosted by the fabulous Brian Hoskins. So please check the calendar for that. We're recording this, putting on our YouTube channel. Check that for those kind of tips and tricks that we do over time, and we'll put this recording on there as well. So thank you very much for everyone for attending. If you asked a question and we didn't get to it, we'll try and answer it kind of after the fact. But I want to wish everyone a very fabulous Wednesday, and everyone stay safe out there. Have a great day.